Hey, what's up, you guys? My name is Grace Lauren Taylor, and you are listening to episode 19 of the Trauma Dump Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Here at the Trauma Dump Podcast, we seek to answer the question, what is mental health? How do I take care of my own? And how do I support others? This week, we will be discussing the topic of recovering from alcoholism with our special guest of the week, Collin. Be sure to go check them out over on Instagram and on TikTok. Their Instagram and TikTok is Claude_Beast101. Claude Beast, or Collin, is the spouse of Claude Beauty, and I'm really blessed to have them both on this podcast. This week we'll be discussing the topic of recovering from alcoholism. Our guest of the week is Collin Gattis, otherwise known as Claude Beast. Be sure to go check them out after the episode and show them some love. Their Instagram and TikTok is at Claude_Beast101. Remember, if you'd like to share on the show, please message us in the podcast participants channel on our Discord, along with your unique experiences, and we will match you to the right episode. Just a quick disclaimer before we start. I'm not a licensed health professional, and I'll never claim to be. This podcast only seeks to create community and further understanding of these topics that are so often misunderstood and so often overlooked. If you or a loved one are suffering from alcoholism, we have resources in the description. The topics discussed here are for a mature audience, so viewer discretion is always advised. Just a quick disclaimer before we start this episode. I'm not a licensed health professional. I'm just a person who has trauma and wants to create a safe place where everybody can trauma dump. This podcast only seeks to create community and further understanding of these topics that are so often overlooked and extremely misunderstood. If you or a loved one are suffering from alcoholism, we have resources in our description. The topics discussed here are for a mature audience, so viewer discretion is always advised. Alcoholism is extremely prevalent. It's been prevalent since humans invented alcohol. The desire to alter your state of being is not necessarily a negative one, but it can become one. Many people ask, what is alcoholism? Alcoholism is a disease characterized by a habitual intake of alcohol. The definition of alcoholism is a chronic alcohol use to the degree that it interferes with physical or mental health, or a normal social or work behavior. It's characterized by physical and psychological addiction, and it interferes with physical and mental health. Alcohol is a central nervous system depressant that reduces anxiety, lowers alertness, impairs perception, judgment, and motor coordination. It also damages the brain, the liver, the heart, and other organs. Alcoholism is considered by the majority of clinicians as an addiction, and it's also considered a disease. It can also be known as alcohol abuse disorder, or AUD, and alcoholic dependency. So it's categorized as a disease because people who have the habitual intake of alcohol and they have children, those children are more likely to develop that dependence upon alcohol. So alcoholism is a disease because it can be passed down on from generation to generation. It's not a disease that you can just pass on by drinking a beer with someone else and then suddenly they're an alcoholic. No. Alcoholism is a disease because more than likely, if a parent is an alcoholic, their child could also develop alcoholism. Now, determining whether or not you are an alcoholic, there's a lot of different ways that clinicians determine. Number one is dependency upon alcohol. Do you need alcohol to be able to function socially? Do you drink copiously so that you can cope with seeing a family member that you may not want to see? Do you drink a lot of alcohol when you have just gotten off of work and it's been a really horrible day and you just want to numb the pain? Clinicians have determined that if you use alcohol to alter your state of being, you could be an alcoholic. Great. Hello. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
I am vibing, having the best vibes. I made literally 28 chokers today, like beaded chokers.
That definitely sounds like a familiar project.
Yes. The vibes are immaculate. I sell my gracelets, as I call them. I sell them on the side of the road, and it's a vibe. And so I'm gonna be selling them tomorrow. And I was just like, I need more. I need people to have more options, because if I've noticed, if they have more options, they're more likely to buy something. So
Yes. Yes.
vibes. All right.
Fun
So
fact from someone that used to sell a lot of things, multiple color options, but limited numbers of each color. So it doesn't matter if you actually have a limited number. If you make 40 of them that are just like green and blue, okay? Put three green and blue ones out. And then when someone buys one, just replace it. People will buy things when they think they're limited stock.
exactly. Honestly, vibes are immaculate. I'm very excited. I'm very excited. Last Friday I made $250 in one day. I was like, oh, this
Nice.
could be income. What? So I'm excited.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so this week we're going to be discussing recovering from alcoholism. So before we start the episode, I just need to address how you would like to be referred to. What are your pronouns?
So I go by he, they.
Okay, awesome. Great, great, great.
Yes.
Are you comfortable sharing your personal experiences?
Yes.
Okay. But just to make sure I'm not crossing any boundaries and respecting your experiences, please
Mhm.
feel free to interrupt me at any time, especially if you feel uncomfortable or triggered. We can always take a break at any time. And if you don't feel like answering a question, just tell me to skip it. I promise I won't get offended, because my priority is to make sure you feel safe at all times.
No, we're all good.
Okay, great. So, alcohol use disorder is a pattern of alcohol use that involves problems controlling your drinking, being preoccupied with alcohol, or continuing to use alcohol even when it causes problems. This disorder involves having to drink more to get the same effect, or having withdrawal symptoms when you rapidly decrease or stop drinking. Alcohol use disorder includes a level of drinking that is often called alcoholism. And I want to ask you, have you been diagnosed with alcoholism?
Not by official standards, no. However, I was definitely drinking enough to be known as an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, you know, to be diagnosed as an alcoholic or to be diagnosed with alcoholism requires a big intervention and requires you to be put away for drinking a lot of alcohol. And when we're talking about alcoholism, anybody can be an alcoholic. Legit, even children. People can be born with alcohol dependence. And it's extremely, extremely common, especially in the UK. And I know this for a fact because I do have cousins over there, where they'll start like drinking excessively. When I say excessively, I mean more than 2 beers as a child, as a 12-year-old. I know some of my extended family that it's just normal over there. And it causes a lot of issues, especially in children, especially in development. And I don't want to offend anybody on the podcast. When we're talking about alcoholism, I'm not talking about if you have a drink at the end of the day just to like vibe and chill. I'm not talking about if you go out and have some drinks with friends. I'm talking about if you rely on alcohol to suppress, to inhibit, to make you into like a different person. Some people use alcohol to make them more fun at parties. And for those listening, I'm using quotes. It's alcohol is very much a part of our social structure, don't you think?
It is, especially where in the area I grew up. So I grew up in Alabama, in the US, and it is such a part of the culture. I actually started drinking when I think I had my first drink when I was 14 or 15. By the time I was 16 or 17, it was every couple of weekends. There was always a huge party. And I did that for about 2 years, stopped a little bit, you know, went through college and stuff. And then after college, kind of hit me again and was like, it got bad enough. I think I was going through like a half a fifth a day. And all this started for a, a lot of it started in the culture I grew up in. A lot of it was other underlying issues I had. And this kind of helped me get through those. Um, there was a lot leading up to it, but I think mine definitely started culturally.
Yeah. Culture, I mean, alcohol is like really important to a lot of people's culture.
Mm.
Um, you know, especially now I can only speak for myself, but I know it's very important in the Catholic culture of,
Yes.
having communion and wine being the blood of Jesus Christ. And I know this because my mother's father's family, very, very devout Catholics. And I know that some Baptists do communion, but they use grape juice instead of
Yes, I do.
alcohol. And, I think communion is great, but I've heard stories from my friends that they were like, oh, we stole the communion wine one time and drank all of it. And they're like diluted it with water. They're like, no one ever found out. No one knew. And there's this like huge stigma for children, especially, or people that are underage, that drinking makes you cool. Why do you think that is?
I think there was I think there was a large, I mean, honestly, a large part of the culture. So, in the area I grew up in, moonshining was a major thing. I actually had some distant family members that were moonshiners back when everything was uh the prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
Yeah.
the word for it.
Yeah.
Anyways, English is not my friend. Um, but it became so ingrained because there was a lot of legal troubles with that, and so I think it was as a kid looking up, seeing your parents or your grandparents, that's how they made their living, and you're like, oh wow, it actually is this kind of cool thing. Like they're running from the law, they're hiding this and that, they're doing this, they're doing that, and they kind of start idolizing it. And then as they get older, their kids are doing the same thing and their grandkids are doing the same thing, looking up to them, going, oh, wow, this makes you so cool. This is a social thing that you do. It lightens you up. It makes you, when I know you normally, you're kind of anal about these things, but we give you a couple drinks and you're now our best friend. Oh, it
Mm.
must make you a cooler person. And so I think there's a lot of that in the culture that I grew up in, anyways. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of seeing people you would look up to or respect doing it and it making them more interesting, more likely to tell you stories that probably shouldn't be told to children. And that's where these kids get their fascination of, oh wow, I need that in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that's really true. I mean, growing up, alcohol was not allowed in my house, like at all. And my mother told me it was because her parents were alcoholics. Now, I didn't really know her parents at a very large capacity. I wouldn't say I met them a handful of times growing up, but I definitely only saw my grandmother a handful of times. And my mother would always say, oh, she was just like the worst alcoholic. So we could never have alcohol in our house. And I didn't find out until I was like in my late teens that they did have alcohol, but my dad never drank, but my mom did, and she hid it from all of us. And it was a very confusing thing for me because it was like, oh, this forbidden substance that, oh, I don't use alcohol is bad. And then I find out growing up, she had a liquor cabinet.
Hmm.
And none of us kids knew. We didn't know that was going on. We didn't know that she would be pouring alcohol into all of her drinks, into her Coke Zero, into
Yeah.
whatever she was drinking. We didn't know. And she was always very, very strict that you can never have alcohol, to the point where she made me promise as a little girl that I would never drink alcohol until I turned 21. And I didn't, because I was that little girl that was very afraid of God and very afraid of, all seeing, if you do
Right.
something wrong, you're going to get like in so much trouble. And she would always talk about how, her parents abused her because they drank alcohol. And so I didn't drink alcohol till I turned 21. And I think back on that now, like maybe if I was a different kid raised under different circumstances, if alcohol wasn't seen as this demon, as she would call it, maybe I would have a different perspective on alcohol. But as an adult now, I'm just like, it's just a drink that can alter your state of being. And I don't really ever drink alcohol. And so I'm really curious as to how people develop a dependence upon alcohol. How do you think they do?
So I think it can be different for a lot of people. We hear a lot of stories about, I forget what the actual statistic is, but it's something like 70 to 75% of our military veterans are almost always alcoholics, have an alcohol dependency. And a lot of that, obviously, a lot of theirs is most likely drowning out the trauma they've been through. I can say in my specific case, it was weird because I also grew up in this very anti-alcohol house.
Hmm.
Um, my mom's side of the family was extremely Southern Baptist, extremely conservative. Of you drink alcohol, you're going to hell. My dad's side of the family, my dad's dad didn't really drink. My dad's brother didn't really drink. My dad's mom, she would drink a little red wine. It helped with her heart condition. And when I forget how old I was, probably 14. Well, I was definitely 14 or 15. My dad had had a lot of back issues over the years,
Hmm.
and in this very anti-alcohol house, he had a fifth of rum hidden underneath the bathroom sink in their bedroom. And he every once in a while, just if his back was hurting him, he'd take a shot. By no means was he an alcoholic,
Hmm.
but his was, when his back started acting up, he'd take a shot and then go on about his day because it hurt and that helped ease the pain for him.
Hmm.
In my specific case, I am extremely ADHD and not diagnosed for years, like way too late in my life. Because my mom was, let's not get you tested. That ruined the family. We're not going to get you tested for anything. So I struggled really badly with ADHD and depression. And I have since I was, well, ADHD I've had my whole life. Depression I started struggling with when I was 12 years old.
Hmm.
And it's, you know, when I was 14 or 15, I found the alcohol under my dad's kitchen sink. I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And I just took some of it. And then I was like, oh, I kind of like this feeling. It's a warm, fuzzy feeling. It helps get rid of some other pains. It helps slow my brain down. It made the ADHD symptoms lessen significantly. And so what I was doing was every not bad every 2 to 3 weeks because I was a homeschool kid. So I was always at home doing school, wonderful. If the ADHD was really bad and I couldn't focus, even if I went outside for hours, came back, still couldn't focus, I would make myself like a cup of green tea or a cup. I don't recommend this, especially at that age, but I was making myself tea or coffee and just mixing a little rum in it to help slow my body down, slow my brain down. Um, and I never got drunk at that age, but that's definitely how my journey started.
Hmm.
And as I continued to get older, again, I kind of stopped drinking during college. Past college, though, um, I had a lot of different life stresses, and I didn't have it when I moved out of my parents' house. I didn't have good insurance, and I didn't have a lot of money to help with actually seeking the help that I needed and getting the medication that I really needed. And so caffeine and alcohol were kind of my self medications forever, and nicotine. Don't recommend that one either. But alcohol was kind of, and then it started out as like a drink on the weekend. That's my sit and chill period.
Hmm.
And then it turned into a drink every 3 to 4 days, turned into, and on the weekend. Then it turned to a couple drinks, and then it turned into a couple drinks at night, and then it turned into a drink every night, 2 drinks a night, 5 drinks a night, because that's what helped me feel normal. Um, and I mean, to be perfectly honest, I went to a facility in the beginning of August, went through a detox, and I'm actually working with another program now to help in that recovery process. Um, and there are days now where I can still think like alcohol would make me feel more normal today, but that's not the answer. I mean, it just about ruined my life, but I think that's really what it is. A lot of people have some kind of inner demon they're fighting, and they don't know where to go for the help or how to get the help they need, and so they drink. And that kind of just, I think that's really where it starts for most people.
Yeah. I mean, alcohol is a depressant. And I also have ADHD. I was fortunately diagnosed as a child with ADHD. And I also have severe dyslexia because I couldn't read. And my mother was like, there's something wrong with this child. And they got me diagnosed, and I was heavily medicated up until college, when I was like, I don't want to take medication for ADHD anymore. I will struggle and try to figure it out. But it sounds like, yeah, you said self-medicated. Like, as a child, it sounds like you're like, there's something wrong. I see. Or did you see your dad actually drinking the alcohol to
No,
help him? Interesting. Maybe
no, but we've had,
subconsciously you were like, oh,
I,
this helped. I'm going to do it again and again and again. Yeah.
so the one thing I would notice a lot, it was typically on the weekends. So my dad he was an electrical engineer. He sat down a lot. He worked at a computer a lot. When it was the weekends, though, in the weekends, we had a fair amount of land, and there was always stuff to be done. We had a garden. The grass always needed to be cut. Trees that were dying needed to be cut and fell so that they don't fall on the house. There's always something to do. And so I was always very observant and always had mental notes going of everything. I still do. And what I would notice is like, oh, this bottle's like half full. And then a couple weekends later, I'd sneak in, look at it again. Oh, it's quarter full now. Mom's not drinking. I don't notice my dad being drunk, but I do see him midday disappear for like an hour. He looks like he's in pain. When he comes back, he's not in pain. Oh, it's the alcohol. And I
Mm.
was able to put those things together even at that age.
Yeah. Kids are freaking smart. They're so perceptive. Kids are so smart. Nobody gives kids enough credit for how
No.
smart they are and how they can deduce anything. I mean, I was nanny to 4 boys for 7 years. I raised those 4 little boys. They're so smart. They can tell anything. Like, I
Yeah.
don't have to tell them anything. They just figure it out. And yeah, it really does sound like you're medicating yourself, which, you know, I think alcohol can be used in a lot of positive ways, but I don't know. Were you hiding it from your parents? I mean, they were hiding stuff from you, so
So my dad, with his job, used to travel all the time. I mean,
mhm.
very frequently. From the time I was about 5 until I was somewhere between 14 and 16, he was averaging 200 to 250 nights a year in a hotel room in some other state, sometimes even other countries, working. My mom, so there was 4 siblings in total, older than me, then younger, then youngest. Um, and so my older was the golden child, and then I was kind of skating under the radar. My younger is special needs. He's most likely autistic, but mom won't let him go get tested. My
Mhm.
mother is very against getting anybody tested for anything, and that screws with us as kids more than just about anything else, in my opinion. Um, and then little sister's pretty cool, but I was always just kind of skating under the radar, so it really wasn't hard to hide things from anyone. Um,
Mm.
I also grew up in an ultra strict house, and strict parents make sneaky children. I think that's the phrase.
They do. They really do. It's oh, Abby's painting fell down.
That's awesome, though. That's a really cool painting.
Yes, my best friend Abby, who has been my best friend since we were 14, made this for me for the podcast. Oh, she actually lives upstairs, so kind of
Nice.
kind of vibes. We can't get
Yes.
away from each other. But yeah, strict parents create sneaky children. That's very true. Very, very true. Um, and there's a reason behind it. Because strict parents are also hiding from their children. That's what I
Yeah.
really do believe. If to become a strict parent requires a lot of lying to your children, because it's like, do what I say and not what I do type beat.
Yep.
And it makes me frustrated. And I would go off on a tangent, but I can't
Mhm.
because it's just like I have to reel
Nope, trust
myself
me,
in.
I have this same tangent. My wife and I have talked about it at length. Um, I grew up in a really strict household. She grew up in a really strict household. Both of us were kind of like, yeah, we were the really sneaky ones that just got away with everything because no one ever paid attention to us because we got really good at manipulating and hiding things.
Mm-hmm.
When we have kids, let's not do that. And if they ask us a question, because I said so is not an answer.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. It's not a good answer. I mean, dude, I grew up in a conservative Jamaican household. And when I say that, yeah, my dad's parents, they're from Jamaica, and we were raised, me and my two brothers were raised by our grandparents because my mom and dad both worked, and my mother has bipolar disorder and narcissistic personality disorder, and um, she would flip between wanting to be our mother and despising us. So the most consistent parenting I ever got was from very strict Jamaican parents, grandparents. But my Mimi has been more my mother than a grandmother. And they were very, very strict. And they called our phones gizmos. And my papa especially didn't ever want us to be on the phones or on the gizmos. And he would try to take them up all the time. And I remember my cousin sneaking down and like stealing his key and stealing our phones back. And we would like have to set a timer and wake up at a certain time and go put it back because Papa would always wake up at a certain time and go check if
Mhm.
make sure we were sleeping. And oh, I love Papa. Miss him. He was very strict, very mean man, but he had a couple strokes like 3-4 years back, and he mellowed out and he became like really nice and like awesome. It was weird. And then he passed away, but it was just like for like 3 years he was just like, who is this man? Why is he
Mhm.
so nice to me? And I don't know, it did create a lot of complexes for me growing up because I always wanted to be perfect. I never
Yep.
wanted to get in trouble because if
Mhm.
we got in trouble, we'd get spanked really hard with switches. Like
Yep.
really, really hard. I think I got spanked twice in my entire childhood by Papa, and it left like deep gashes in my side that I actually have scar tissue on my butt from it, like from how hard he hit.
Mhm.
And dude, I like what you said is like strict parents create sneaky children.
Mhm.
And I think that's also a big thing with people who develop alcoholism, where it's this forbidden thing that, oh, you cannot drink until you turn 21. But oh, we're going to go to a party and all these cool kids have alcohol because they have cool parents, and my parents are so mean. Their parents are so nice and they're letting us drink alcohol. And I know for a fact, a lot of my friends growing up, their parents allowed them to drink alcohol like for special occasions every once in a while. And they had the phrase, I'd rather have you get drunk at home than get drunk at a party. What do you
Yep.
think of that phrase?
I'm actually totally fine with that. My thing is like kids kids are going to be kids. They're going to do what they're going to do. Obviously the preference would be them being of age. That's the big thing. I'd rather have them be of age. If not, they're going to do what they're going to do because I was a kid that I'm going to do what I'm going to do and obviously we see how that turned out. I would much rather have, and it's not necessarily just like going to be my kids. It's going to be nieces, nephews. It's going to be my kids' friends. Like I know people are going to get alcohol if they want alcohol. That's just it. I would rather them be here drunk where I know they're safe than out anywhere else. I don't even care if they're like on the back porch getting drunk. I would rather know, hey, stay inside in the house, do your thing, rather than you, because at least then you know the environment they're in is a safe one.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
also that would give us the chance to be like, to educate them about alcohol. It would give us the chance to be like, all right, this is how much you've drank. This is probably what's going to happen. You've had this many. If you continue to have a couple more, you're going to get blackout. You're not going to remember anything for hours. I will video it to show you in the morning. When you wake up in the morning, this is what a hangover is going to be like. It's going to suck. You're going to hate bright lights. You're going to hate loud noises. And I'm going to create that havoc for you because my life's still asking. But not as in like a, oh, you did a stupid thing, let me punish you for it. But as in like a, hey, if this becomes part of your life, because that's what I dealt with. There were mornings there were nights that I drank so much that I was either still drunk or very hungover trying to drive to work the next day.
Mm.
And it creates a very bad environment. So I guess the young, teaching them at a slightly younger age, or if they do that, being like, here's a real life consequence because of a real life action you took, and hopefully get that to instill the actual thought process in them of, hey, there are consequences for what we do. Drinking this much, this is a consequence of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think when I was a nanny and I was raising those boys, I would tell them all the time there are consequences for your actions. And I don't want you to think of a consequence as a negative thing. The consequence is just a outcome of whatever you're doing. So you can have positive, negative consequences, and you can also have neutral consequences. And I think it's really important, especially when talking about alcoholism, is to not be black and white about it, right?
No.
I feel like there's too many campaigns that are just so black and white. They're like, you drink alcohol, you're gonna die in a car accident or something like that. Nothing
That's
is
not
black
always
and
the
white.
case. No, because again, highly disadvise it. But when I was younger and was only having a drink every 2 to 3 weeks, like there was no real life, there was no major consequence to that. It provided me with benefits. It allowed me to get done what I needed to get done. It helped lessen some other symptoms I was dealing with at the time. When I was able to do that, that was fine. The issue is the ADHD provides low impulse control. And so there was definitely a period towards the end of my drinking where I mean, every night was a blackout night.
Mm. Yeah.
And so, but it is very much so shown and portrayed as it's black and white, and not, and this goes for a lot more than just alcohol. Not many things are actually black and white. There's a massive gray spectrum right in the middle, and you kind of just got to judge on your own. Like, hey, you know, it hits me right here near the white side, but still in the gray. Are these consequences negative or positive to me in my life? And it's also a very personal thing for people, though.
Mm-hmm. It definitely is. I mean, if we really get into it, there's the religious aspect of it, there's your moral aspect of it, there's the social aspect of it. I mean, the way that people have a relationship with alcohol is dependent upon so many factors that it's not even a possibility of black and white thinking. And I want to go back to what you said about like strict parents. I feel like because they were so strict with you about, oh, we don't drink alcohol, it might have created an issue of like you're drinking the alcohol to be able to cope with ADHD and not being able to concentrate. And now you're in a place of, I'm dependent upon this substance. Maybe I want to talk to my parents about this, but your mom is also like, oh, we can't diagnose you because that means there's something wrong with you. And that
Yeah.
somehow means there's something wrong with me and my parenting and the way, like, blah, blah, blah. It creates this huge separation, this huge boundary of like children that need help have no place to go to because they feel like they're going to be judged. They feel like they're going to be criticized. They feel like they're going to be ostracized by their parents
Right.
for having a human problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me really frustrated because I kind of dealt with that too, but in a different sense. I had my entire childhood was like purity culture, all purity
Same.
culture vibes. And when I was 14, 15, around that age, I was sexually assaulted in my church. And on that same day, my parents' business burned down. And because they had taught me my entire childhood that, oh, if you ever have sex before you're married, you're a rag that has dirty hands and no one will ever want to wear you, bullshit. And like, you'll have less value to men, and ugh, that just makes me sick thinking about it. But I, as a child, was like, I don't know who to talk to about this. Like, what am I supposed to do? They created this, like, I feel like I'm gonna get judged. I feel like I'm gonna get criticized. And I became very suicidal to the point where I did try to commit suicide at 15 years old. And I tried to, slit my wrists in the bathtub. And thank God I took, like, said goodbye to some of my friends, and they called the police. And the first question they asked my parents was, has she had alcohol tonight? I never drank in my life. I was struggling. I was suicidal because I felt so worthless because the indoctrination, the ideology they had put
Yep.
on me as a child of like, you're less than if something happens to your body or whatever. And it makes me so confused. It's like, why was the first question the police asked? They weren't asking if I was okay. They didn't ask for an ambulance. They asked if I had had alcohol. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they asked if I had had alcohol?
Because so alcohol has kind of, I like to call it the duality effect, and it's different for everyone. But typically between that 1 and 2 drink period, and this depends on a lot of factors. This depends on your physical size because that affects your alcohol tolerance. It depends on how much you've been drinking because that also affects your alcohol tolerance. So it basically, in to just make it short term, I'm just going to call it your alcohol tolerance. Depending on your alcohol tolerance, between that 1 to 3 drink range, typically makes you super happy, super just carefree, super happy go lucky, whatever. After 4, 5, 6, that deeper range, it's not. It really can spike your anxiety. It can raise your cortisol levels on a biological level, which is your stress hormone. And then so now you're dealing with anxiety and stress and unfiltered thoughts. Your brain can't filter out your thoughts because that's just how the alcohol affects you. And so it has this, this slight upside for a first little bit, and then this massive downside. And a lot of people that I know who were struggling with suicidal tendencies, or one of the couple of times I even attempted because of different reasons, I was very, very drunk. And they write it off. A lot of times it's written off as, oh, they were just drunk and did something stupid while they were drunk. And I'm not saying this is all police, but it's too many police are kind of lazy in their jobs and want the shortest and easiest route to get to an answer. So they're not really concerned with, are they actually okay? Is there anything actually wrong? It's just, oh, they were drunk. Oh, that's why. Check the box. All right. Make sure they're alive. Take them to a doctor if they need stitches. See ya. Have a good night.
Yeah, makes me sad. It does.
Yeah.
I don't know about it. I've never, I don't know if I've ever really been drunk. I think I've been like, ooh, I feel lightheaded, fuzzy, but I don't think I've ever been drunk.
Well, so that also has kind of a different definition per person because
Mhm.
it's left up to the individual a lot. But legally, I think it's if you blow over like a 0.02 blood alcohol level, you're drunk. But for some people, it doesn't even take that much. I can tell you, my wife accidentally got drunk a couple of times from stuff that legally she would have been still able to drive. Like
Mhm.
there was nothing, but she is rather small and it hits her harder because she doesn't drink. And like, so just a little bit of something was way too much for her. And so even though legally she wasn't drunk, she was very much so drunk. And so usually what I tell people is like, if you're having trouble stringing thoughts together, or if you stand up and you can't really trust your balance, or if you normally have really great vision, if your vision after a certain point, things start to look even the slightest bit blurry, you're drunk.
Mm, yeah. That's a pretty good kind of like, hey, you can't see, maybe you're drunk. You cannot see these fingers, maybe you need to sit down. Um, you know, I didn't have alcohol till I turned 21, and my friends were very much wanting me to get drunk, so they made me take 6 shots in a row when I turned
Mhm.
21. It didn't have any effect on me for like 3-4 hours, and then I was
Mhm.
like, I feel like I need to go party, and then I went to sleep like within like 30 minutes, and they were like, you were like the worst drunk in the whole world. And they never gave me alcohol again. But I agree with you that alcohol affects everyone really differently. And the cortisol level thing, I think that's really, really interesting, of how alcohol can start to raise your cortisol levels. You know, alcoholism can cause liver failure, heart disease, so many different things. You know, the whole like beer belly thing of creating like a pot belly if you drink a lot
Yep.
of beer, because it creates a lot of fatty tissue around your liver, your kidneys, your internal organs. And my partner likes to call beer, he likes to call it bread water. And he's like, they just have just so much bread water in there. It's just a lot of bread water.
So that's actually a fun, interesting little topic. There is the beer belly. It really is only a struggle with beer or ale or something like that, and it's because of how many calories are in it, and but the yeast in it really is a lot of it. Because beer's never been my thing. I can't stand it. I've tried just about everything out there. Hate it. Won't do it. So I never really dealt with it. Whiskey and vodka, great. Never really gained the weight. Never really had the issue of the beer belly. There's actually, it's funny though. Ed Sheeran. There's a clip of it. I could probably find it on YouTube of somebody asked him how much, like how he lost weight so fast, and he's because he lost like 20 to 30 pounds over like a 6 to 8 month period, and they were like, "Well, how'd you do that?" And he goes, "Oh, I just stopped drinking beer." Oh, well, was it hard for you to stop drinking beer? No, I just replaced it with vodka. Like it really is a beer specific thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. That is very, very interesting. Hmm. I don't know. I don't like beer either. It just tastes weird. Tastes bizarre to me. Tequila vibes. But on another note, um, so according to the World Health Organization, unhealthy alcohol use includes any alcohol use that puts your health or safety at risk or causes other alcohol-related problems. It also includes binge drinking, which is a pattern of drinking where a male has 5 or more drinks within 2 hours, or a female has at least 4 drinks within 2 hours. Binge drinking causes significant health and safety risks. Why do you think there's a difference between binge drinking for men and for women?
I think because you can't term that for everyone of each gender. I think it's a generalization between the size difference. A guy who's 6 feet tall and 180 to 350 pounds, that's basically the amount it takes for them to deal with really drunkenness. But I think it's sorry, stuttering over my words there. I think it's a lot the size difference, but also the metabolic rates, because guys from basically from high school all the way up until their mid to late 40s, their metabolic rate is just naturally faster than females, because that's really when they're working age, military age, pro athlete age. It comes back from predating history when it was more of a hunter-gatherer society. So back before we had all this wonderful infrastructure and major civilizations, like when your primary food source was what you hunted that day, that was the age that you were a hunter. That's what you did. And it was very physically taxing. And so, loose term here, evolution basically, it's an evolutionary fact of just men have a higher metabolic rate. And then they were also designed to be able to take in and consume more toxins because alcohol really gets converted into a toxin in the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really does. Um, People can die from drinking too much. I think that's it's understated but also overstated, because we don't, in the media we don't really talk about, hey, you can actually die from drinking alcohol. It's like, oh, this one person died and they're like, oh, we'll brush it off, but seriously, if you drink too much, your body is poisoning itself, honestly, because of the way it converts the alcohol. Sugar can be turned into alcohol in your body, which can be turned into which can raise your glucose levels, and you can have a heart attack and die. And I went to Texas Tech University, which is widely known as a party school.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I didn't party, okay? So I didn't, but
I didn't say you did. It's just the generalization made. You went there, it's party school.
yeah. But all of my friends did party. All of my friends did. Or they at least partied once, because I was a theater major. I graduated with my BA in theater. And so I was always busy. Every single semester I was taking at least 20 to 24 hours. And then I had a job, and then I had shows that I was running because I was wanting to become a director. And so I never had time for parties, but I knew all of these acting majors that always went to parties and were very hungover the next day, that it prohibited them to be able to perform adequately. And when I say adequately, mess up on their lines, go up on the line saying, I don't know my line. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, you say you want to become an actor. Why are you limiting yourself? Because in my mind, it sounds like they're limiting themselves. And within, I think, my freshman year, I had some acquaintances that were in a fraternity called Fiji, and three initiates or rush, whatever it's called, 3 men died in one weekend. I think 3 men died from over use of alcohol. Like they were forced to drink a lot as like some form of initiation. And I think to myself, what? Like, to take it to that extreme, I don't understand why an initiation process would be, I'm going to make you so incoherently drunk that you could die from it. Like, you want to be in with us so bad, die for us. And Fiji got shut down. They are no longer an organization on Texas Tech's campus. And it's so common in our media that, like, oh, frat boys drink, oh, they party, oh, they spike the liquor, oh, they spike your drink, oh, date rape. That's like a really common thing. And I'm wondering, like, why is that like such a thing of, like, women cover your drinks? Like, it boggles my mind of just being like, why is that so ingrained in our culture? And why is it just like, oh, you need to put precautions in place just so you don't get date raped for your drinks? It's like,
It's insane to me. And I have very, very heavy opinions on this,
I'd
which are
love to
not
hear your
necessarily.
opinions.
So it's a lot of issues. And the biggest issue here overall, in the nicest way I can put it, shitty people. Both men and women, shitty people. That is why we are, I don't have to worry about that sort of thing. You do have to worry about that sort of thing. Why? Because no one's going to try and drug me and rape me. I never have to worry about that. Shitty people is why women in general everywhere have to worry about that. And I can't go into all my opinions on this because some of it just really should not be said. But there are as a whole, I think that's why that's an issue. And then it's such a lack of accountability among people is why it continues to be an issue. You know, I grew up in a place where it was still legal for years up until like the mid 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
It was still legal that if two guys had an issue with each other, they could be in the middle of the street fighting it out. The cops would show up just to make sure nobody died. And afterwards, they walk away and go home. Like that was legal in the culture I grew up in, which also led to some other things because of just the social and cultural values of if
Yeah,
you
you've
ever
seen
see a
that.
man lay his hand on a woman, you have an obligation to then go beat the ever living hell out of that guy. That's the area I grew up in, so it wasn't a major issue in the town I grew up in. I didn't grow up in a large city. But then like there were some larger cities nearby where that really wasn't their culture, and they had a much bigger issue with people having date rape drugs put in their drinks and stuff. And I think a lot of it in general is just lack of accountability.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a really big discrepancy there between, you know, women having to be overly prepared to defend themselves or just to freaking exist
Mm-hmm.
versus punishing people for doing wrong or doing stuff that's illegal. I mean,
Right. Yeah. Well, so here's the other thing is it's a generalization. Some people may hate this comment, but I stand by this. Guys don't want to stand up and be guys anymore. You know, my wife never has to worry about what if this thing happens in public because it's never an issue. If someone says something to her, I'm in between her and some other person yelling right back. If someone tries to lay a hand on her, I'm right there between her and the other person ready to fight back. Most guys don't want to do that anymore. Most guys are like, but what about jail? No, it doesn't matter. I know for a fact someone tries to pick a fight with her, I can put them in a hospital, show up in front of a judge, and go, "What would you think if if someone tried to do this to your wife? What would you do in my situation? Case dismissed. Go home. Have a great day." People are so scared of what are people going to think if I am in a fight? What are people going to think of this? Oh, I could lose my job. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't. The important thing is protecting your family, protecting your friends, protecting the people you care about. And you know what? Your job will understand. And if they don't, it's pretty easy to go get another job. And then your second issue is having accountability with other people. There needs to be a social accountability. There needs to be this thing of if you see a group of people in a bar acting a fool, everyone else in that bar should be kind of helping push them out the door and get them away somewhere else. Or if you see that a guy drops something in a girl's drink, everyone in that bar could see this girl not acting right and this guy trying to walk away with her. Everyone kind of has the same obligation. Stop them, figure out what's going on, and handle the situation how it needs to be handled. And nobody wants to do that.
yeah, there's this huge conflict avoidance, I think, especially with the past two generations of just like, I don't want to deal with it, right? And I'm not that type of person. I always am up to bat for any one of my friends, even if it's an enemy, any person that I see needs help, I'm there. But I've witnessed it of this just it's none of my business type beat. It's not my problem. It's nothing I have to deal with. It's not directly affecting me. So why should I care? And this apathy is just so upsetting because these people, they're like, oh, no one cares, so I can just get away with whatever I want. Like there's no accountability. And it's extremely distressing because when there's a lack of accountability, that accountability is now directed at the victim. of like, oh, where were you? What were you wearing? What were
Right.
you drinking too much? Did you like maybe consume too much alcohol?
Right.
Did you, like it's
And those things shouldn't matter anyways. Right? Like there should not be a time where, someone's out and they get raped, right? It shouldn't matter what they were wearing. It shouldn't matter if they'd had some drinks or been perfectly sober. It shouldn't have mattered where they were. That's not the issue. The issue is someone raped them. That's the issue. I don't like how culturally it just seems so set now of let's blame the victim. It's not the victim's fault. Yeah, there could be preventative measures, but that's still not the major issue. The major issue is somebody raped them. Somebody did not think there would be consequences. Somebody did not have accountability in their life. Somebody did not have something, and that caused them to do this thing. That's the issue.
yeah. And I really, yes, alcohol can alter your perception, your sense of reality, your personality, what have you. But I hate when people use alcohol to defend their poor decisions or their poor behavior.
Mhm.
Like so many people use alcohol as a way to get out of things. Like I know guy at my college from a while ago, and I was at an ex-girlfriend's house, and she and I were having like a sleepover, and this guy that she was living with got like extremely drunk and invited a bunch of friends over, and something happened and it got really loud, and they started fighting, like physically fighting each other, like fighting. And nobody was trying to separate them. They were fighting so hard that they slammed into her door. And so I got up and I opened the door. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And then they started to try and fight me. And then the
Mhm.
next day, when I was leaving, they were like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry for trying to fight you. It's just the alcohol, man. The alcohol got to me. I'm like, like,
Okay.
what? The alcohol got to you? So the alcohol is the reason you tried to punch me in the face for opening a
Right.
door.
And that's also not an excuse, but it's become socially acceptable to blame things on some substance you take. Which there for most people that I've spoken with, there are different effects of different alcohols per person, right? That's why people have their preferred drinks. In my case, vodka made me slightly energetic. Light, I'm talking like one shot or less. Vodka gave me energy, helped me focus. Alcohol slowed me down, helped me focus. Tequila just made me warm fuzzies. Um, it's kind of the big three that I was into. So I know people though that tequila gave them the super energetic, the spinnies, or not the spinnies, the zoomies is what they called it. I know other people that whiskey gave them the zoom, and it's so yeah, it's different per person. I knew for myself though that if I had too much tequila, eventually I would just get unrationally angry.
Mm.
No real reason, nothing bad. I never got into an altercation because I was drunk. I never started anything when I was drinking, but there were times where I know that I had some tequila or I had a little too much of this or that, and I was just irrationally angry for no reason.
Yeah.
But that doesn't take away from my accountability of my own actions at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, consumed in moderation, the short-term effects of alcohol are typically safe and pleasant. One 12-ounce beer is known to increase sleep time and reduce awakening during the night. And this beneficial physical effect of alcohol is not seen when more than one beer is consumed. The effect of alcohol when consumed in excess of one drink can actually disturb your sleep cycle and cause a lot of daytime fatigue. The REM cycle is really important. It's important.
And as you are coming off of alcohol, it takes a while for your sleep cycle to get back to where it should be. So it's fun. I have a smartwatch. I've had it for a little over a year, which kind of was in a break point of my drinking, the heavy point of my drinking, and then as I'm recovering from drinking. And beforehand, great. Um, while I was drinking, it actually was dropping my blood oxygen levels to dangerously low. I would wake up some days, and because it would read that throughout the night, and my low point would be like 75% blood oxygen, or I think the lowest I got was like 73. But the highest it ever was 88 when I was drinking. Before I was drinking, it went from 97 to 100 every night. And now that I'm recovering, it's 97 to 100. But even my sleep cycles are still off. There are some nights where it's like I'll sleep for 2 hours and that's it. But there are other times where I'll sleep for 12. But it takes a while for your body just to readjust back to not having some form of substance in your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't think people really understand. Alcohol is a drug. It's a drug.
Oh, by all intents and purposes, it is a drug.
Yeah.
It's actually, there's another study that came out within the last few years that was talking about the effects of certain drugs. By comparison, alcohol was included in that. And when you just look at it ounce for ounce and how much of it's consumed, alcohol is by far one of the worst drugs you could take. It can kill you if you take too much. That's most drugs. It can also kill you when you stop taking it if you've been drinking heavily for a long time. It's one of the only ones that will do that.
Yeah, because your body creates a dependence on it. And with any substance, your body creates a dependence on. Like, I'm not just talking about like drugs. Your body can create a dependence on certain foods that you eat, certain minerals that you're consuming. I think there was a study. What's the mineral called? It's like, I'm gonna forget it, but there was some study over this mineral that's it's found in most of your like leafy greens, and people that go from eating like a healthy diet that's like super balanced to, they did like a research study over like what is the difference between the diets, how does it affect your body, and there was a diet that was like, once you stop consuming this mineral, like your collagen levels decrease, doesn't matter what age, they decrease really rapidly. Your body's ability to process certain foods doesn't exist anymore. And then once you have that reuptake in that mineral, it's like weird, like night and day, the way these people look. Like they would have like these sinking eye bags, and it was just suddenly so much better. I'm forgetting what it's called. I'll find it and put it in the show notes. But it was super interesting. And I was doing a lot of research over this episode of how alcohol affects your body. And what you said about it just reminded me, like, if someone is a heavy drinker and they like suddenly stop drinking cold turkey, they can die. That's super true. And I think it's more common in men than it is in women, and especially more common in men in ages 40 up. And
yes, but that's also, I I haven't looked into this too much, but from what I've seen so far, it's also typically more men than women who suffer from alcohol addiction, anyways, which plays a huge role into why do more men die when they stop drinking versus women. Well, it's not really that more men do; it's that more men had the alcohol dependency than women did in general.
mm-hmm. Why do you think it's more common for men to develop an alcohol dependency than women?
Social expectations. It's more expected. It's especially blue collar workers. Blue collar workers have this issue way more than white collar workers. I know I've done both jobs. I've been around both people. It's more of blue collar workers, but you get off a construction site or you get out of doing this or that or whatever it was you were doing. It's very easy. Hey, let's just go grab a couple drinks at the bar. Then we'll go home because that's a work time. And when you work with people for significant lengths of time, you get to know them. You kind of get to be friends with them. Well, You just got out of a very stressful day at work. Yeah, let's go hit a bar. Let's have a couple drinks. Let's chill and relax. We're friends. This is off the clock time. Then go home to our families. And that's what they do. But a lot of times, even further than that, guys, because we're stubborn and stupid, will sit there and go, 2 drinks. That was nice. I want another, and another, and another, and another. And before long, maybe it's not that way with everyone, and may not be, and it's definitely not that way with every guy, but it's more of a consistency with guys to have lower impulse control, especially after some alcohol. And when you're going by the bar anyways, before you head home, you naturally have lower self-control and less impulse control. That's the word.
Yeah.
I think now would probably be a good time just to catch a little break so I can go feed the cats real quick.
Yeah, of course. So we took a break. Actually, you were talking about your wife's episode. I made, because she took several breaks, so to make the flow of the episode better, I made a little animated skeleton dancing saying, "We're taking a break." It was just the best thing ever. I was just so proud of myself. I'm going to show you it.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like a theater intermission.
Yes.
I love it.
So signs and symptoms of being an alcoholic include being unable to limit the amount of alcohol you drink, wanting to cut down on how much you drink and making unsuccessful attempts to do so, spending a lot of time drinking or getting alcohol, like you're just constantly going to buy alcohol, you drink the alcohol, it's like a cycle. Feeling a strong craving or urge to drink alcohol whenever in a stressful situation, failing to fulfill major obligations of work, school, or home due to repeated alcohol use, continuing to drink alcohol even though you know it's causing physical, social, or work relationship problems, giving or reducing social media and work activities or hobbies to giving up, reducing social or work activities and hobbies to use alcohol, using alcohol in situations where it is not safe, such as driving or swimming, and developing a tolerance to alcohol. So you need more to feel its effect. Bruh, there's so many symptoms of being an alcoholic.
Oh, man.
There's so many.
I hit just about every one of them. So I definitely would have been referred to as a functional alcoholic. I never missed anything with work. But I did pretty much give up on all my additional hobbies. Pretty much everything. The only thing I kept up was playing video games. I let go of a lot of household responsibilities. I was drinking. I never went more than a 10-hour, 12 hours because of sleep time, or pass out time as I like to call it. Never more than 12 hours without drinking. And it got to a point where I was feeling really, really, really shitty before I went to work. So I would wake up in the morning, 2 shots, drive to work. I was okay throughout my workday. Get home, and immediately after getting home, 1 to 2 shots. Take care of my responsibilities, cook, try and put away the dishes, try and wait and do some of my regular household chores, come up here, sit right here, and drink. And that was every day. And it got bad enough. I was going through a half a fifth of something that was 90 proof. So that bottle never lasted me more than 2 to 3 days. I would always run back by the liquor store on my way home as soon as I ran out. Or sometimes would even have a full bottle in my trunk so that when I ran out, I could just replace it with a full bottle.
Hello, kitty.
Dusk, you are cute, but you cannot be walking on my computer.
Oh, Titty. Hello, Titty.
Hello. She's a little special. Both of our cats are a little special, but in different ways. Don't get. I love you. She really does. This one's the definition of no attention is bad intention. If you are not giving me attention, I will get into trouble just so you're giving me attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's our cat Loki. He demon baby. When we first got him, he was extremely small and very malnourished, and he hated everything and everybody and wanted to bite, bite, bite. But Joey kept holding him no matter how hard, like drawing blood. He's just like, you will love me. And now Loki is like, anybody can pick me up. There's no use fighting. I've tried everything I can. I'm just going to be held. And he will put himself in dangerous situations just so that we will pick him up now. And it's really bizarre. And yesterday he jumped off of the fridge and hit his noggin. And then he like walked right up to me and he was like, I have been hurt, mother. And he would not leave me. I was like, dude, why did you do this to yourself? And
So we have two cats. The first one has been my wife's cat for what, 4 years? Getting close to 5, I think. So when we got married, we brought her here. Then we a month or two later, I had a coworker who was moving from one apartment to another. Her new roommate already had two cats, so she was trying to get rid of both of her cats. We could only take one of them, so we took this one. Um, and I mean, when we first got him, it was literally night and day. So my wife's cat, Storm Angel, she was basically the leave me alone. Okay, I want attention now. And then 5 minutes later, all right, I'm done with you. Goodbye. And then it could be 2 to 3 days before she wants attention again, before she'll approach you again. Dusk is literally the opposite of attention. Oh, give me attention, please. I'll sit right here.
Very easily overstimulated. Try to respect that.
So we have started. It's the joke we make though, because Storm Angel and the way she is kind of reminds me of someone that deals with autism. So we refer to her as our little autistic child, and then Dusk is all the time, everywhere, ADHD energy, and so she's her little ADHD baby.
oh, so precious.
Very
we
precious.
have Loki and we have Lucy, and Lucy is Lucifer, but she's a girl, so she's Lucy. And Lucy is demon, just demon, just demon.
Mm.
She bites ankles and toes and fingers. She's bit my nose. She's a Maine Coon kitten, and
I want a Maine Coon so bad.
I'm worried about how big she's gonna get because she has like really stubby legs, so we think she's not gonna get very big. But
she must be a mix then.
Yeah, but I'll show you a picture. She definitely looks like a Maine Coon. She's in the other room because because we have a 2-bedroom apartment, if they're in the general vicinity, they like to fuck with this curtain and they won't shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're
Nope, that sounds very familiar.
They're bullies.
Oh, wait, I can get a decent picture. There you go. That's Stormy and Dusk.
No. They are friends.
They didn't at first, but they do now. Oh,
Lucy.
It's so precious.
She's a human baby. She is. And then this is Loki. This is Joey's cat, Loki.
Aww.
We got him when he was really, really little, and he was taken away from his mom because his mom started eating his siblings. And so he didn't really have like a mom. So he thought Gigi was his mom, and he would suckle on Gigi for a very, very long time, and she would let him. She was like, okay, you're my baby now. So he still thinks Gigi is his mom, and he tries to clean Gigi. That's very interesting. So he has a complex.
Dusk gives off like pit bull energy a lot, and so, like tail's constantly wagging. When she's super happy, it wags faster. She gets into all the trash to find food. It's not like she doesn't eat. When we got her, she was like 15 pounds, and then we just fed her less to get her smaller, a bit smaller, anyways, because we had to take him to the vet in February, and in February the vet's like, yeah, she's nearly 13 pounds, and Storm Angel's barely 7, and I was like, they like to bully each other in different ways, so let's feed Stormy a little more, let's feed Dusk a little less. And so now they're more about the same weight. Uh, Storm Angel's probably closer to like 9.5 pounds, and Dusk is probably closer to like 10 to 11.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, Dusk has gotten to a point where she can finally jump up to get into things now. But she reminds us of a dog. So every once in a while, if she's doing something, uh, we have this little coffin cat tree downstairs, and she'll get in it and lay in it and see her tail and start like trying to fight and grab her tail. And when she grabs it, she'll just bite it. And I'm like, that's a dog trapped in a cat's body. That's what that is.
It's their first life as a dog. They don't understand. It's a weird body.
Yep.
Oh, I love animals. Gigi
They're
is
great.
saying, Gigi is wanting to say hello.
Oh, well,
She's the best dog in the whole world. Her birthday was yesterday. She is now
oh,
7. Makes me
nice.
sad. My last golden retriever died at 9, so I keep looking at her like, you better not die. Better live forever. Because if you die, I die. We're going out together.
I actually, when I was 7, my my dad's parents, they live like 200 feet in that direction from my parents' house, so we could see them all the time. When I was Christmas of 2007, they got a dog, and it's a mix of like a golden retriever, a lab, and something else. It didn't get very big. I mean, it's a small dog, but he's getting old. He's 16. The last time I went down Thanksgiving last year, and he was not looking good. That's sad. I knew he only had like a couple years left, if that. He's old. He's very old.
Dogs and cats have to live forever. I don't know if my
I
heart can
know.
take another loss. And that's like, it's so real. It's so real. A lot of people develop alcoholism as like a coping mechanism for, loss, grief,
Yeah.
depression, post-traumatic stress disorder. That's why it's super common among veterans and people with disabilities to develop alcohol use disorders.
Yeah.
And, when they use alcohol as a way of coping with like this loss, it suppresses that feeling for a little bit, and sometimes it just makes it worse. I really do believe that alcohol, for a lot of people with their depression, it just makes it worse because alcohol is a depressant. And
Yes.
so they develop this dependence on the alcohol of like, this made me feel great for a little bit. I need to just keep drinking because I feel
Yeah.
so bad. I just need to keep doing it. And I think that's what happened with my mom. So very sad vibes. Here's what's about to come. Very sad vibes. So I told you how my mom hid alcohol and we didn't know that she had alcohol till we were much older. But my dad was very much against any drinking of any kind. And,
Mhm.
you know, whatever. And he didn't really ever make a big deal about it. He was just
Right.
like, I don't drink. It's like he never had like a really
Right.
big stance on it. He just didn't drink.
Okay.
And my mother was the one who had like the huge stance on it. And in 2015, my dad owned a data recovery company called Taylor Mark. It was his own business. He built it from the ground up and it burned down along with a lot of the technologies that he invented, and we lost a lot. And on the same day, I was raped. And so I became like super suicidal. And my mother didn't want to deal with me. And my dad didn't want to lose my mom. So they sent me to go live with my grandparents for a while. And I was so broken up about that. And then, I went off to college and COVID happened right after freshman year. And then I was forced to come back home, but my mom didn't want me to live in their house. She wouldn't allow it. So I started living in the RV that was attached to the house. And
Gone.
my dad was hit by a car in June of 2020 in our front yard. The car ran off the road and hit my dad while he was taking out the trash. He wasn't in the street or anything. and he suffered from a severe TBI and later died from it in November 2021. And so I really loved my dad. He was an amazing, amazing, just friends with anybody type man. He was great. And my mother decided to disown us children. She took us off of the healthcare, car insurance, phone plan, iCloud. She took us off of everything within a week of his accident and wanted
Wow.
nothing. Yeah, she wanted nothing to do with us. And so she'll flip-flop nowadays between wanting to have children and despising us and wanting nothing to do with us. And I've noticed the few times, I can count on two hands how many times I've seen her since the accident. She refused to go to my dad's funeral. She refused to like hang out with us. My dad's funeral was in December. I saw her in April. And then in April, she was like, "Oh, I've been dating this man. Guess how old he is?" I'm like, my dad has just died. Why are you trying to have this conversation with me?
Right.
Like, I don't know. She's, I don't know, 50, because she's in her late 50s. I'm like, I don't know, 50. She's like, wrong. He's 30. I'm like, okay. That was I literally actually I was like, okay. She's like, yeah, I've been with him like officially since February. So I'm like, wait. So that means like maybe a month or two after my dad has died, you're with a new man who is drastically younger than you, who also she refused to re-sign my guarantor form at Texas Tech. So I was forced to pay $1,800 out of pocket to get out of my lease. And she wanted me to live at home, but she wouldn't let me have a room. So I was sleeping on the couch right after my dad died for a while. And then she kicked me out because she didn't want anything to do with me. So I was homeless for 4 months, living in my car. And vibes. And I got an apartment with my partner, vibes. And so I hadn't seen her in forever since she like completely abandoned me for the bajillionth time. She's like, "Aren't you just so happy for me?" I'm like, "What, are you drunk?" She's like, "I only drink a little bit." I'm like, "Oh, so you drink alcohol? You told me my entire life that you don't drink alcohol. When you drink alcohol." And recently, as of 2 months ago, I have blocked her several times, but like 2-3 months ago, the Barbie movie came out. And so Joey was like, "You know what would be a great olive branch?" If you took your mom to the Barbie movie and tried to like reconnect with your mom. And I was like, okay, fine. So we both took her to the Barbie movie and she was really nice for a little bit. And then no less than a couple days later is she texts our family group chat, "Hey, I rented a cabana. It's like $50 if you guys want to come over." And I was at work. And then 10 minutes after she texted that, she was like, "I don't even know why I fucking try anymore. I hate you children. I wish I was never a mom." Like a bunch of just like
Wow.
horrible, horrible, horrible things. My youngest brother texted the group chat, "Are you drunk?" And so he drove home and her boyfriend are wasted and there's shattered glass all over the floor. And apparently she stole like her boyfriend's phone and wouldn't give it back, and they were fighting over something. And my little brother is like, "Dude, why is my dog in the house? There's broken glass all over the floor." So he's trying to pick up this giant golden retriever that weighs over like 100 something pounds and like carry him over the broken glass. And my little brother calls me. And so I'm hearing all this commotion because I'm a nosy bitch and I want to know what's happening. And I'm hearing everybody yelling and screaming. And I'm thinking to myself, was the whole reason why you were so against alcohol my entire childhood, is it because mother, you were an alcoholic? Because she would always blame it on her parents. And so I started doing some research on this of like, alcoholism is considered a genetic disease, a genetic disorder. I found that super, super interesting that, you are more likely to develop alcoholism if you have a parent that has alcoholism. And it is now a genetic marker. And like you go to ancestry.com, you take those DNA tests, you can see on those DNA tests if whether or not you have like these genetic predispositions to certain diseases, and alcoholism is one of them. And I think that's crazy.
Well, so to build on that, what makes it crazier, because this is kind of another thing that just really affected me. So I've known I've had ADHD for a long time, but it wasn't up until the last year or two that I started actually doing research on it. If you have ADHD, this also applies for autism and selective other mental disorders. You are 5 times more likely to struggle with alcoholism. You are 3 times more likely to struggle with any form of substance abuse. You are twice as likely to just be addicted to things that, I mean, if there's an addiction therapy for it, you're twice as likely to have an issue struggling with it. It doesn't even have to be substances. You're naturally just more predispositioned to struggle with addiction of some form. It also makes your recovery experience a lot rockier to get through because it affects you differently because of these other disorders you have.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Dude, that's crazy.
Mind blown, right?
Yeah, it's wild. That's so ridiculous that like all these factors that you have nothing to do with it. You have no control over. And it's just like, bro, you got ADHD, you can get addicted to things way worse than anybody else.
Absolutely.
You already struggle really hard with your ADHD. Good luck, man. It's like, what?
Yep. No, so here's a cool thing, right? Well, not a cool thing. Not a cool thing. Fun coincidental facts is what I would call them. Sorry, so my brain, well, I'm naturally a little bit cynical. Just naturally I am. But then I also find I use the word funny in situations where it's not like a laughable funny, but like a, oh shit, that's actually really sad. That's also funny. But people that do more adventurous things, the adrenaline junkies, the ones that will go skydiving or parachute or parasailing or just all these crazy things, people that are in the X Games, there's a high correlation between people that do those activities or that is their profession and ADHD. 90% of them, well, not quite 90, over half, I think it's roughly around 70 to 75% of them, actually end up dying not from their activities. It's from some form of drug overdose because they got addicted to the way that adrenaline made them feel high and how that made them feel. And they literally were just chasing that. So they develop a lot of drug dependencies and most of them overdose. So not like a funny fact, but like there's a very direct correlation.
Yeah. Sad. It's very sad.
Which is why I oftentimes have to use my wonderful wife to be my stupidity filter of, babe, this sounds really fun. Can I do it? No. Here's how you can die. Oh, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I also have ADHD, but I think ADHD manifests differently in women than in men. And I did a whole episode over ADHD with Brave Dave, which is episode 9. And it's really interesting because men with ADHD are more frequently impulsive, are more frequently energetic, distractible, versus women with ADHD. There's often like this. Let me look at my feelings wheel to get the right word. There's like this huge insecurity, like invalidation, feeling inferior when you have ADHD, that you're like overcompensating a lot. I found that with women who have ADHD, it's almost like they're overcompensating because they're like, there's something wrong with me. They recognize it a lot faster than men.
Yep.
And far be it for me to point this out, but it's really true. If there's differences in if women are perceived as different, as other, as that's kind of bizarre, man. That's kind of weird the way you're reacting. They're seen as less than. And oftentimes with men, it's like if a man is like different, he's quirky, he's out there, he's like cool. And I don't know, women are not allowed to be perceived really by society as different, or you're going to be scrutinized.
Well, so controversial question time.
I'm ready.
Is it really society, or is it like society as a whole, or is it during a certain age range between start of middle school and halfway through college, those the standard ages? And when I say college, that assumes you graduated high school and went straight to college, not the outliers that went way afterwards.
So
But
like 12 to 20?
yeah, 12 to 20. Is it that females in that age range are more judgmental towards other females in that age range? Because if you have a female also judging an ADHD guy, that's quirky. And guys, just as a whole, in general, we don't really give a shit. We're more of the, oh, this is a person we vibe with on a person by person basis. We find a single common interest, and that's really the basis of most of our friendships. So do you think it's like all of society as a whole, or just like the selective group that really judges very harshly towards that group, and it's just a lasting impression from that?
I think both, because I'll put it this way. As a woman who has dated both men and women, non-binary people, I know for a fact that more men avoid me than not, because whenever I tell them that I do have ADHD. I've found that out, especially when you talk about like dating. A lot of our generation's dating is through Tinder, Bumble, stuff like that. And so more men are becoming more selective. It's the same thing with women, but women have always been selective. I'm just going to say that. I'm just going to put that out there because that's true. Because in any form of biology, females need to be selective with who they mate with so they can have the outcome that they desire with certain characteristics and stuff. So women have always been selective. That's just a given fact. Men have not. Men are not in general biologically selective. Men are just like everybody. And so I found with Tinder, more often than not, guys would write me off whenever I was open and honest about my diagnoses. If I told them that I had a service dog, they'd be like, that's weird. Why do you need a service dog? You look fine. Like, I'm disabled. They're like, bye. I've seen that a lot. And also when I was in college, I had Gigi with me all the time. When I did not have Gigi with me, I was asked out a lot more than when I had Gigi.
Okay.
And and this could just be my opinion, my perception. I could be wrong, but I do find that men are becoming a lot more judgmental. And I
agree with that.
And it's interesting because I feel, and this is just my feeling, I feel like women want to not understand, but like fully comprehend the ins and outs of any prospective person that they're dating. Whereas men will find these characteristics and be like, based on like my previous like circumstances or interactions with someone who has ADHD, like I'm just like, I hear you have ADHD, not going to vibe with it. And it could be the same thing with people who have, alcoholic tendencies. I think is really interesting because when I was in college, when I told them that I do not drink, because I didn't drink until I turned 21 and I was in college from 18 to 22. So for a good long bit of my college career, I was not drinking. So when they would ask me, hey, would you like to get a drink? Would you like to go to a bar with me? I would say, hey, I don't drink. And more often than not, those people would write me off. They'd be like, don't want to deal with this person, which I think is also interesting because alcohol is such a social thing.
Mhm.
And maybe part of it was like, I could guess like a couple guys were like, oh, she's not gonna be easy to drug. That's what I think a little bit, but
And
that
that's
could
very
also
possible.
be.
That's very possible. Well, here's the other thing, because of the heavy stigmas around alcohol, is what I will say. There's kind of this preconceived idea that if you ask someone for a drink and their response is, "Oh, hey, I don't drink," because this was a very common thing depending on where you grew up. Some places it wasn't as big. Where I grew up, it was huge. If someone says, "No, I don't drink," that's because their mentality is on this, I'm up here on my high horse. I'm better than you because I don't drink.
Mm.
And so there was a lot of that. So I even know, like, I when I was dating during that time period, it was like a, hey, what are your thoughts on alcohol? And they're like, actually, I wouldn't mind it once I turn 21. I'm like, okay, cool. But if there's someone that was like, no, I'm never going to touch alcohol, that I would just write them off because I was like, you know what, that's no, not going to deal with someone who's a holier than thou. We're all
That's an
people.
interesting perspective. That's an interesting perspective. Yeah, there are, especially with the prohibition. So for those of you that do not know what prohibition is, I'm gonna Google the actual definition. Prohibition. So prohibition was in the not the 1850s. Okay. Prohibition was in the 1850s. And it started in the 1850s of women being like, my men's are coming home drunk and I don't like that. And like they're stealing all my money. They're using, because women couldn't have money, and they were using all my money to spend on alcohol. And so the actual law of prohibition was from 1920 to 1833. But the rise of prohibition, which within like cities, right, started in the 1850s. So with the rise of prohibition, meaning alcohol is not allowed anywhere, anytime, legally in the United States, they were like, no alcohol. We're not making it, we're not selling it. If you buy it, you're going to jail.
Yep.
And this brought up the rise of moonshine, speakeasies, stuff like that. Of these rebels, these warriors are like, we want alcohol. We're gonna provide a way for people to get alcohol in these temperance movements. And, you know, when the whole idea of like, I don't drink alcohol, I'm holier than thou, comes from that kind of sentiment of this alcohol became very demonized because of prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
And these people that did not drink alcohol or said they did not drink alcohol were like, oh, I'm not doing anything against the law. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I love America. In America, we don't get drunk. We're not like those Irish, which was a really big thing. Against, yes, GG, against Irish immigrants and people of Irish descent, is they started to stigmatize that they were drunkards, and we're not like those Irish. Pa vibes.
America's just always had this holier than thou opinion.
Yeah.
Mental backtrack. Do you know why moonshiners are called moonshiners?
Why?
Because to make, to move, and to sell, they typically were only doing it at night by the shine of the moon. That's why they're called moonshiners.
Nice. Nice. So prohibition was officially ended in 1933 with the 21st Amendment. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool?
But so on a federal level, it ended. On a state level, it is over. But there are still selective counties. I know of quite a few counties in Alabama where I grew up. I know of a couple counties in Georgia and I think it may have even been a county or two in Tennessee, still dry counties. No alcohol whatsoever there. If you want alcohol, you have to go to another county to buy it and then bring it back to drink.
Interesting. Well, it's interesting. So weird. So weird how this black and white thinking really messes with a lot of people on their morality level.
Mm-hmm.
On that scale that affects the government. Wow.
Yep.
Weird. Weird. Have you ever upset anyone with the amount of alcohol you've consumed?
Yes. More than once. There was a couple of times, even when I was still living in Alabama, because so multiple fun facts. I'm not a huge person, but I'm pretty tall and weigh enough for myself. I naturally have a fairly large alcohol tolerance. Um, which leads into a fun genetic fact. People with light colored eyes have a higher tolerance naturally than people with dark colored eyes.
Is that why once I took 6 shots, I have green eyes. Is that why when I took 6 shots, I didn't feel anything for a very long time?
That could be. It also very much so depends on if you ate beforehand. That also has a huge part to play. Because that will affect the process in your body actually metabolizing the alcohol. Because it has to get through the food first, then the drink. Um, Actually, the first time I ever went out drinking with people right after turning 21, I was 4 shots before feeling tipsy, 7 or 8 shots before I was starting to get to a point where I was like, hey, I can't drive home. Like, and then it was only worse from there. Um, but I lost the whole train of thought.
It's okay. We're talking
Oh,
about someone being upset
oh,
drinking.
yeah. So there have been some times where I would go out with friends, and like one of my friends, super lightweight, and then another friend was like in the middle. And we would just, I mean, the ongoing joke was like, hey, whoever drinks the most pays for this round. Or the other joke was, if you can't drink that much, you know, whoever stops drinking first, whoever taps out first, you buy this tab tonight. And then 10, 12, 14 shots later, and I'm still moderately okay at that point. And they're like, that's enough. We're done with you. You can't have me. But then there have also been times just in general social things, or even here at home, there have been some times where I drink definitely just more than what an average person should drink. And it would upset my wife or it would upset family and friends. There's just been a lot of times. And it wasn't really ever that I did anything bad or stupid. I never really got angry when I drank. Just it was just an upsetting amount, as they put it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think was the turning point for you to recognize that you needed to change? You needed to stop drinking?
So there was a big turning point pretty early this year. And it was, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was drinking each night. When I woke up to go to work Monday, could tell I was still drunk, but I still had to go to work. And I tried driving to work, and that was my mental turning point of, hey, something needs to change, but I could never get myself off of it. I tried everything. I tried tapering down myself, but I couldn't do it. Um, and then actually in July, my drinking had gotten bad enough that my wife had tried to kill herself because of how bad my drinking had gotten. And that very clearly was just my, hey, dumbass, stop it. So she was in a mental facility for a week dealing with some other things as well. And at that point, I was like, I'm done. I dumped everything I had. Um, that was in the middle of a week. 18 hours later, at work, I was having really bad cold sweats, heart palpitations, just a lot of side effects of quitting cold turkey like that. So I did end up buying more and then continuing to drink throughout the next week until I could go to a detox facility.
So you went to a detox facility. What was that like?
Um, so the place I went to deals with detoxing off of any substance, but as well as oh, what is it? just general therapy. You can do inpatient treatment. So there were some people that were there for a full 30 days. But if you were there just for detox, it was, they said between 4 and 7 days is typically their period. I was there for 6 days. I probably could have gotten let out sooner, but they liked what my insurance was paying them, so I was kept for 6 days. Um, I don't know. It was a lot of sleeping.
Mm.
They did offer things like Ativan, and they had a huge list of other medications that were available to me. I did take Ativan a couple of times just because my body was really craving, and it helps eat down the cravings, but it also helps regulate other things in your body so that you don't have a seizure, so that your blood pressure stays okay. And it makes you super groggy and tired so that you're sleeping a lot, which is really what their whole plan is. And detox is, hey, get up and eat some food and then sleep. That's really the best way to get through this. So I think I did that for the first 2 days. After that, I felt more okay. And so I didn't end up taking any more Ativan afterwards. But I was ending that, like, they had AA meetings while they were there. So I was attending those. I went to some of the classes they had for some of their inpatient people. And that was really interesting. It taught, a lot of just other coping tools other than drinking. It taught a lot of the like really negative benefits about alcohol. But if you could catch a couple of the right people, you could always get them into having the conversation where they stopped reading the brochure and would actually have the conversation of, here's the positives, here's the negatives, here's what my experience was, and actually have like a real human conversation with you. Yeah, that was, it was a good experience for me. I needed to go through it. Never want to go back.
Yeah. How are you feeling right now?
Honestly, I'm good. So here was an interesting thing that I didn't realize was, as my drinking got worse, it was a steady step down and down and down and down every day, but it was a very slow progression. So when I was there, I got there was something weird with my driver and the guy had taken it before me. And so he got here way later than he was supposed to. He was supposed to originally pick me up at like 7, and it was a 2.5 hour drive. He didn't show up till 11:30. So I got in about 1 to 2 a.m. at the facility. So that first night I didn't even sleep. I was just up, I was wired. I just stayed up all night. Um, but the next day, like, I went to sleep. When I woke up on Monday, I was like, you know what? I feel okay. Tuesday, I feel okay. Wednesday, it felt like a million bricks had just been taken off my chest. Like I woke up and literally just went, holy shit, I feel great. Before even being fully conscious, it was just like, that felt good. And then Thursday was the same thing. And then for about the next week or so, it was the same thing every day, just waking up feeling better than the last day. In general, now I feel way better than I did. I have more energy. I'm able to focus a lot better. There are definitely still some days where the ADHD is kicking at a million miles an hour and I can't focus on shit, but it's, as an overall whole, it's better.
Yeah, that's good. I'm really glad that detox was such rejuvenation for you of, I mean, that's incredible. That's awesome. And it sounds like because you went to detox that your relationship has gotten a lot better as well.
It has. Um, I mean, we were at a very, very bad point, and we had to have just a real conversation. So before we got married and moved in together, I told her I didn't want to have any bad habits carrying over. I'd stop smoking and vaping, and I would stop drinking. I was able to stay off nicotine. Alcohol, I was not able to stay off of. And I told her I just didn't want to affect her. I didn't want to give her any bad habits. I didn't want to come into this. I was doing it for her. And obviously we see how well that worked. So this time coming out of detox, she was actually staying with a couple of friends of ours. And I was like, look, I know last time I said I'm doing this for you. Screw that. No, this time I'm doing this for me. You can choose to stay, you can choose to go, you do what you need to. And we both kind of just took the approach of like, let's work on ourselves individually, help each other where we can, but be kind of selfish and more just self-centered in our heat right now. because
Mm-hmm.
we both had been just pushing so much of our attention to each other that it created a toxic environment for both of us.
Yeah. Yeah. That, you know, individuation, that differentiation, especially when you are in a relationship and you two are both struggling, is incredibly important. Um, when I say differentiation, for those that don't know what that means, it means to be able to have your own personality, your own hobbies, your own likes, dislikes that are separate or individuated from another person. Um, it sounds like you two had a lot of enmeshment and were really relying on each other.
Yeah,
And
it was kind of an unhealthy codependency.
mhm, yeah. And a lot of people fall into those patterns all the time.
Mm.
Joey and I were definitely in those types of patterns when we first started dating because he kind of was rescuing me from, my mom and being abused by my mother and being homeless. Like I was having frequent seizures all the time. Like I don't have as many anymore, thank God, because I'm medicated. But I wasn't medicated then and I didn't have any money because I spent all of my money to get out of my lease and
Right.
genuinely didn't have any money. And because I was having seizures, I could not work. And I tried, and he was like, just let me take care of you. And, he also struggles with severe depression. And so whenever I was struggling, he somehow saw it as, oh, I'm not doing enough. I'm not helping her enough. Nothing that I'm doing is working. She's still having a seizure. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
catch her this time. The back of her head hit the ground. This is all my fault.
Right.
And it took us having to go to couples counseling and start going to individual therapy on our own and start to not separate, but recognize that we're allowed to have our own lives apart from one another and
Yeah.
still have a life together.
Right.
And it's so important, especially when, I've had a lot of friends that they're like, "Oh, my dad's an alcoholic and I can't believe my mother stays with him." And
People struggle.
people struggle. No one is perfect.
Mhm.
Everyone, we all have our faults. We all have our insecurities. We all have our inadequacies. But that doesn't make you less than as a person. And something that I really want to impart on the listeners, if you struggle with alcoholism, there is help available. You
Yeah.
are not alone. And if you want to change, you can. You can. Change is really it's the only constant. It's human nature to change. And if you don't like these coping mechanisms that you have with alcohol, you can develop new ones and you can develop healthy ones. And
And a major part to add into that is getting yourself a group system together. It doesn't have to be many people, two, three, four people you really trust to help keep you accountable because it's such a struggle. It's one of those things where you think you can get yourself out of it, and some people can. 95% of people will never be able to. And that doesn't mean you don't deserve that help, though. And it doesn't mean that, you should be any less qualified to get that help. It takes a lot of help, it takes a lot of effort. I know for me, I have obviously my wife, but then I also have like three, four other people that if it's a bad day for me, I can just call any of them and be like, hey, I'm really struggling. I really just want to get drunk. Like that's all I want. And they help talk me down and talk me out of it. And that's an important thing is just having that system in place for yourselves. And it doesn't just have to be alcohol, it's whatever you're dealing with. Having your little system helps.
yeah, peer support is really, really crucial, especially for any type of healing, because humans are social creatures. We need our peers, we need our friends, we need our families. And if you guys need anonymous free peer support, we have our Discord server. where you can join and talk about whatever you need to and get support. And if you need resources, I will do research for you and find you those free resources, because they're out there. They're out there.
There
And
are a lot of free or very, very cheap resources.
mm-hmm. And, you are worth the effort it takes to get better. You're worth the effort it takes to heal. And the healing process is not linear. It's kind of like a loop-de-loop. Just because you struggle does not mean you're not progressing. Doesn't mean that you're not healing. Healing takes time. When we think of like mental healing, I need to give like a picture. It's like if you get a cut on your arm, right? And that cut scabs over. If you touch that cut, it's going to hurt. That doesn't mean that it's not still healing. It just means your body is telling you, don't touch that again. Don't do that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with any type of trauma, because, having alcoholism can inflict trauma upon yourself, can inflict trauma upon others.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying quit cold turkey, because that's really dangerous, especially with alcohol.
Yeah.
I'm saying do your best to recognize how you are being affected by it and how it is affecting others. And that hurt that you are creating is real. I mean, so many people are so dismissive about how their actions affect other people. And it makes me very sad, especially when it comes to alcohol. You're like, well, I'm the one drinking it. You guys aren't drinking it. It's only affecting me. And no, it isn't, because other people have to deal with you when you're drunk.
Or after a prolonged period of time, I forget how long it is, but it actually begins to chemically rewire your neural pathways. It affects your personality, it affects your ability to interact with other people. It causes a lot of short-term and long-term effects, negative effects. And there's things that I'm still having to recover from, and I haven't been just over 2 months. And
Mm-hmm.
there are still things that I can recognize as, no, that's the alcohol brain. That's not the sober brain. What does the sober brain say?
Yeah. There are far more negative effects of alcohol when it's consumed long term in like great amounts. The long term negative effects of alcohol include cancer. Like 3.6% of all cancer cases worldwide are related to alcohol. And that also results in 3.5% of all cancer deaths are related to alcohol. The more alcohol that is consumed, the more negative effects of the alcohol being seen. Negative effects include increased risk of heart failure, heart disease, anemia, brain shrinkage, addiction to alcohol, which is alcoholism, dementia, strokes, brain lesions, which is like cuts on your brain, liver damage and multiple liver diseases, nerve damage, muscle weakness, electrolyte deficiencies, insomnia, tremors, seizures, depression, pancreatitis, lung disease, loss of sexual desire or impotence, bone loss, skin disorders, so many types of cancer, fetal alcohol syndrome, and babies born to women who drank during pregnancy. Like, the list is so expansive of how alcohol can affect you negatively. And I just want to not shame anyone, but say, hey, actions have consequences. I don't want anyone to feel shame for the things that they've gone through or how they have chosen to cope with what they have gone through, but to say there is a better way. There is a healthier way, and there is a way that will not harm you physically. Pain is real. You don't need to inflict pain upon yourself to make that more real for you. Just because the pain is up here doesn't mean you need to inflict it out here to make it more real. And that's something I have to tell myself all the time, because I do suffer from self-harm. I do slam my head into a wall whenever I'm really frustrated with myself, or I feel angry or any form of like super negative emotion, like I do resonate with blaming myself, and then I'll hurt myself because it makes it more real for me. And, you know, using alcohol as a coping mechanism is harming you. And we need to recognize this, and we need to put plans in place to prohibit ourselves, and not do prohibition or not do like all that ridiculousness. No, we're not doing that. Okay. That doesn't work.
No.
But limiting ourselves in a way that is kind to ourselves, in a way that is reassuring to ourselves, in a way that is not belittling ourselves, of saying, oh, if I drink, I'm just going to ruin my whole life. No. No more black and white thinking. Not allowed. Oh my goodness. So this podcast purpose is to identify trauma and how we can help heal ourselves and help others with their healing journey. The podcast mantra is, trauma is not who you are, it's what you go through. It's right there. Oh, let me go like bloop. Yes, that thing. So would you consider what you have gone through as trauma?
Yes. Yeah, by far. And I know, like, it was kind of a way of coping and self-harming and burying other traumas that I've been through in the past. But this also added on to it, and just, it was a traumatic thing, yes.
Yeah. What is the road to recovery looked like for you since the detox?
Continuing to go to AA meetings. I'm working with another company that has people over here twice a week just to kind of check in, see how the week's gone, make sure I'm not drinking. In addition to going to therapy, getting medication for my ADHD and depression, which I have a date set up for that, for the depression soon, ADHD to follow, and trying to isolate the underlying issues and get for the underlying issues as well. And then the therapy to learn how to manage stress in a better way.
So how's your daily routine changed to limit alcohol or to not have alcohol?
A lot.
I'm trying to allude to what you said about the grenadine and the
so
stuff
it's
before.
So on a day-by-day basis, it's not changed a ton, but like if things begin to get overwhelming or stressful, or if I just have like the feeling of wanting alcohol again, I actually make mocktails. I found syrups for grenadine, triple sec, and blue curacao. I'll buy like liqueur or bubbly, and just mix that with some syrup, and it kind of takes away the urge. It doesn't necessarily work for everyone, but it is helpful to me, and so it was worth a shot.
Awesome. And I think that's a pretty good resource, is to make mocktails. If you're like, I need a drink. And there's also non-alcoholic beer. If you just need that flavor of that bread water, if you need that bread water in your system, just get non-alcoholic beer. Vibes. Yeah. And I think, what's it called? White Claw? White Claw is coming out with a non-alcoholic drink of White Claw.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's pretty weird. I was like, what? But then I was like, what? And I was like, this could be something for people who don't want to drink alcohol, but still want to be in the general vicinity of alcohol, and like nobody actually knows that they're not drinking alcohol, right, so they're not going to get judged type thing. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. Pretty cool. Okay.
But
you got yourself another drink?
I did.
Ooh.
This one went in the big cup.
It's blue.
It is blue. Well, the cup's blue too, but it does have blue curacao in it. I ran out of grenadine. It's like blue's the second best option.
I want fun drinks.
Yeah, somebody needed to buy edible glitter for a different project she's doing. So there's some pink edible glitter in here. And you can see it really well in the clear cups, but when you spin it around, you can actually just see it like swirling. It's really cool.
That's so cool.
It messes with the ADHD so bad. So if you see me just over here spinning this, that is exactly why I'm just staring at edible glitter in
Okay, I would be too. I can't wait to get, because I'm 23 now, I can't wait to get to the level of adult that I have money for things I just want. Because right now we're just living off of Joey's income, and he'll be a tradesman, I think, next year. And so I'm just like hype, hype, hype.
So what field is he in?
He's a plumber.
Fun.
Yes.
So nothing against plumbers, great for the trade. I hate anyone that does any of the design work in 3D for you guys. They suck.
I don't know nothing. My head is very empty.
I say that because so my job is I do 3D models for the electrical trades.
Ah.
So I don't know how big of a company he works for, but most of the time they're doing this. It's called technical term is a BIM coordinator. It's 3D models put into the building, and you coordinate between all the trades. So the plumbing, the mechanical piping, all the duct work, your air conditioning and stuff, and electrical, and sometimes some other stuff in there as well. And yeah, no, plumbing sucks.
All I know is that he is very, very smart and very, very capable, and that tools are very, very expensive. So that's where most of our money goes, is new tools. But
Accurate.
yeah.
Very, very accurate.
I don't know. He's pretty cool. I guess I'll keep him for a while. Anyways,
Usually,
what was I gonna say? I was gonna ask, speaking directly to our listeners, what would be your message about healing from alcohol addiction?
oh, be honest. Um, like genuinely be honest. Admit you have a problem. Once you admit you have a problem, even if it's just yourself, tell someone else. You're stuck in this loop, or if you're stuck in this loop, rather, you're probably not getting yourself out of it. Get some help. Otherwise, people are going to give you an intervention, and those are no fun. It's much better to be like, "Hey, I have this problem. Help me." People are more willing to do that. Um, and then seek professional help. Most people that I know are not alcoholics because they have an alcohol problem. They're alcoholics because they have a trauma problem and they're coping with alcohol. And now they have an alcohol problem. The alcohol was probably not the root cause here. Go try and figure out what the root cause was and get help for that as well. Don't it's not always a great idea to try and do both at the same time. Get through your alcohol help first, then deal with the underlying issues. It's much easier that way. Because I've watched people do it both ways, very close people to me. And and I've heard too many stories. I've talked to too many people. It's much easier to deal with one problem than deal with the other one. Don't try and hide it. Whoever you're trying to hide it from, they probably already know. Um, I guess beyond that, just don't be too hard on yourself in your recovery process. If if you have a slip up, you have a slip up. It's not the end of the world. Try again. And that more goes for everything, not just alcohol. A slip up does not mean you're not getting better. And a slip up does not ruin all the progress you've had so far. It's a mistake. Things happen. People will understand. Keep trying and keep doing it.
Yes. Yes. Wise words. Good job. Wise
Thanks.
words.
The trauma.
Yeah. Do you have any resources or recommendations you'd like to share?
Always there's Alcoholics Anonymous. If you just Google AA meetings near me, it's the first link. It will allow you to look at AA meetings that are, it lets you filter them, but you can set a distance for how far away from you they are, what time they're at. AA is a good one. Really any 12-step program is a good program. AA is fairly religious based, not necessarily like Christian religious or Catholic religion. It's very much so a find your higher power. Um, what else? There was also NA, but that's Narcotics Anonymous. Those have been the main ones I've used. Everything else has been, for me, it's been through professional help.
Mm-hmm. We also have a link in our description for 2 free weeks of BetterHelp if you would like to seek any form of telehealth counseling. Use the link. I don't get anything from it, I swear, but it's helpful.
I'm also
And
pretty sure BetterHelp is one of the few where through the telehealth they can actually prescribe you medications as well.
also Cerebral can as well.
Okay.
If
Oh,
you
there is one phenomenal app. It's called Effects. It's interesting because it's gives you certain challenges throughout the day. And part of the challenges, it goes through different categories of like exercise, it goes through diet, it goes through a bunch of different things, but the whole point is through recovery. It gets you to journal, it gets you to set yourself challenge questions in the morning and then answer, did I hold to these challenges at night? Um, and it's a huge in-depth process, but it also kind of sends you like a cash reward for those things. It's like 5 to 10 cents per challenge you do. Um, and you can withdraw that after you call someone from their company. That is not necessarily a free resource, but they work well with pretty much any insurance to get your cost to be minimum.
Interesting. That's pretty cool. So we are at the end of this interview. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm all right. I'm good. This is probably the first real time, other than with my wife, obviously, that I've actually ever really talked about all of this. Um, it's a little bit anxiousness, but otherwise, I'm doing really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to know that someone somewhere will hear this and hopefully get the help they need as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to say that you're incredibly brave to say all of this because trauma is so stigmatized. Alcoholism is so stigmatized. And I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on my podcast, helping this little podcast out, like sharing your story. I mean, thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course.
You have come a long way, and I know your wife is so proud of you. I am also extremely proud of you. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to change, and you're doing it. And props.
Thank you.
Good job, Collin. Let's go. Good job.
It's a day by day process, but
You're
that's
doing it.
I mean that's life.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for being on this episode.
Yep, you're welcome.
Bye. If you're watching us over on YouTube, here are our memes of the week from our Discord server. Just a quick reminder before we part, this podcast seeks to forge a strong community, so please don't hesitate to join us over on our Discord to share with others. On our Discord, we have so many different channels of discussion with various topics that include more than just trauma. We wish to create a place where you can be heard, so please join us. You are needed and appreciated, and we'd all love to meet you, know you, and support you. At the end of every week, we spin our wheel of emotions to learn a new feeling and how it correlates to my own trauma. Ooh, it landed in confused, perplexed, disillusioned. I think we've done this word before, so I'm going to spin it again. It landed in confused again. It landed in excited. I'm excited to have this podcast. We are in episode 19. Did you ever think we could get this far? Honestly, I am surprised. Yeah. I made this podcast because I wanted a place to be able to share what I was going through without being judged. And we've come so far. We really and truly have. I am so excited to see where this podcast goes. I'm so excited to meet you and to know you and support you. I'm so excited to grow with you guys. I mean, because of where I've been, 2 years ago, Grace, which was 21-year-old Grace, I had my first drink of alcohol. I did not have alcohol until I turned 21, and I, made that promise with myself because my mother had told me that her parents were alcoholics. So out of caution, I wanted to make sure that I didn't drink alcohol until I turned 21, and I was excited to see what it was like. And alcohol really doesn't have that big of an effect on me. Over the years, I've discovered that opioids don't have an effect on me. Morphine doesn't work on me. Lots of pain medications don't work on me because I've been in chronic pain my entire life, and we've tried a lot of different things to help me. And so I was excited because I was like, ooh, alcohol. Interesting. I want to know what happens. And I took 6 shots in a row on my 21st birthday, and I didn't get drunk until 3 hours later. I don't know why it took so long. I don't know if that's normal, but I didn't get drunk until 3 hours later, and I never had a hangover, and I was like, this wasn't really worth it. I know that alcohol affects everyone differently, but for me, it was a really big letdown. It was a huge letdown, and I don't really drink alcohol unless it's a social situation, because I know for a fact that some people in my family use alcohol as a suppressant, as an accelerant, as a way to alter their state of being, and I don't want to be like that. I already have enough problems as it is, and pain medicine doesn't work on me, and I don't think I get drunk that easily, and that worries me a little bit because I'm like, I don't want to really try now and see how much it takes for me to get drunk, because there's no reason for me to get drunk, and I know my situation is not the same as everyone else's. So I would like to hear your input on how does alcohol affect you. Special thanks goes out to all of our Discord users. Thank you so much for all of your support, all of your loves, all of your memes. I'm really grateful, and I could not do this podcast without you guys. If you'd like to support the podcast, we have a Patreon. Different tiers can get you a bracelet made by me, like this one, or you can get a sticker, You can get a sticker and support the podcast. We also have merch on our bonfire of custom apparel designed by yours truly. So please, if you'd like to support us, please do. And if you feel compelled to, please like, subscribe, and share the show. It really helps us out a lot. So thank you so much. Remember, you are capable of a fulfilling life in spite of your circumstances and your trauma. May you rise again from the ashes and be filled with peace, hope, love, joy, and understanding. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.